Hey, Steve Magnante here at High-Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts with another high-octane muscle car walk-around. But here's, to be correct, this is not a muscle car, this is a Mustang. And with that said, this is the first version of the pony car, the Great American Pony Car, which is not really can be confused with a muscle car because muscle cars tend to have big blocks and muscle car stuff. But 1964 and a half was the first year for the Mustang, which was basically the first car built specifically for baby boomers. And in 1964, Ford predicted that 20% of all Americans would be under the age of 40. That meant a huge sales opportunity. So what Ford did was come up with a thing called the Mustang. We have it right here. Now there's several versions of these, and these are built in this family from here, 64 and a half. They're actually all 65s, 65, 66, and then 67, a whole new car arrived. So these things sold 600,000 units in 1966 alone. With all Ford vehicles rolled together, Ford beat Chevrolet for #1 for 1966. That's how popular the Mustang was, and to the bottom line at Ford. Now this one's kind of unique. It has some nifty things right on the lower panel here. This is a GT, which is basically the sportiest version of the Mustang you could get. Of course, Grand Touring, as in, you know, sort of European aspirations. And of course, the lower rocker stripes, standard fare on the Mustang GT, whereas a lesser Mustang would have emblems here. But what Ford did with the GT was they basically de-gingerbreaded the Mustang, including here. On other Mustangs, there's sort of a fake little bunch of little chrome strips here that they made it more sanitary, but just eliminated it. Sometimes less can be more, and that's the case with the Mustang GT. Another thing too on the GT, these are all 4-barrel 289s, no 2 barrels, no 6s, none of that stuff. So you either had the 225 horsepower A motor, A code, or the 271 horsepower K code. Either one of those things made a Mustang a pretty peppy car. Now under the hood on this one, what do we have? It's going to be a 289, clearly. It's the only engine that was possible, the only displacement. And under that hood, there it is right there, 289 high performance. Now this is a little bit misleading. That's the sticker that would be used on the 271 horse unit, but that's okay. This has some aftermarket goodies on it, aluminum intake manifold, chrome valve covers, and some steel tube headers. No harm done. Aftermarket air conditioning, but inside we'll see in a minute, this is an air conditioning car. We'll look into that. And nice about this, it's a crisp car, nice restoration. Another detail too is if you don't want to use power brakes, don't buy a 64 or 64 and a half or a 5 or a 6 Mustang. They're all manual brakes. And in fact, the GT came with heavy duty suspension and manual front disc brakes. So you basically had to use your pedal, step on it hard to use the brakes functionally. The first power disc brakes on Mustang came in 67 when they added a whole bunch of weight, the 390, and they had to have a suitable braking system on them. This is factory original right here, but no add-on Willwards. It's basically all standard stuff. And the wheels for 66 were changed. 1965, the styled steel wheel was actually an all chrome, all steel wheel. Beautiful wheel. 66, Ford must have, you know, the bean counters must have spoke up. They got this trim ring, which pops in place. You know, it still is attractive, but to me, it's not quite as effective or attractive as the 1965 specific all chrome aluminum wheel, or steel wheel, the styled steel wheel. And these twin red lines here are reminiscent of the Firestones that would have been standard on the GT, but these are modern Silvertown radials, which are better handling type tires. And this is a great example really of that all Mustangs weren't fastbacks necessarily. This is a coupe or a sedan. It does not have a vinyl top. And of course the GT was available on this, the hardtop, the fastback, the 2+2, and the convertible. All three of those body styles could be had with the GT package, which is kind of neat. Have a look inside. And the GT came with standard front bucket seats. Got them right here. And just an attractive interior. The pony interior in place. You can see that there's ponies, running ponies on the upholstery of the vertical bolsters of the seats. Just a really sporty interior. Imagine being a 20-year-old kid, and this is your first car, poppy red Mustang, you know, with that cool console down the middle. What a great looking car this would be. It puts you in a good mood every time you drove it, I dare say. It's a manual window car, and again, you know, this stuff here is part of the pony package. The upholstery looking here, it's soft-ish. But again, this is not a vinyl top car. These cars could be had with a vinyl top, which kind of gave a halo effect, added a touch of class if you were into that kind of stuff. And around the back, one thing that's unique to the GT was the valance at the rear with those rear exhaust outlets through the valance, these chrome tips. That was standard equipment on all GTs. And again, not available on 2-barrel 289s or 6-cylinder cars, clearly. Now the rear axle in these things is an 8-inch, pretty tough piece. But with that said, when the 271 horse K-code motor was arrived on the scene, you got a 9-inch rear axle out of the Galaxy. So tougher piece and less likely to get broken if you went to the drag strip. But let's look inside this one. And here's the door tag. We can learn about what what ratio is hiding inside of that 8-inch rear axle. I think we see code number, what is that? Code 1, which is a 3.0 open differential, not a limited slip, but that's okay. And what a neat car. And with that said, I think with the ginger bed removed right here, the Mustang's lines really are complemented a lot, whereas the other ones look more gingerbreaded up. With 608,000 Mustangs built in 1966 alone, this is the car that really kick-started the pony car era, 64 and a half, 65, and 66. The largest seller one right here. And again, 608,000 units were sold in 1966 alone. Far more than any comparable car from Plymouth to Barracuda. That wasn't even a competitor, really. And of course, 1967 would bring the Camaro and the Firebird and the Javelin, and Mustang suddenly had competition. So the market was pretty much their own thing for those first couple of years. This is a great example of the breed. One of the first pony cars built in America for the American baby boomer market.